Bank of England keeps markets waiting, but how weak is the UK economy? This is Macro Matters, and we're talking about the British economy. The Bank of England kept rates on hold this week as it tries to balance evidence of slowing growth and a weaker jobs market against concern about a pickup in inflation, with further spending cuts from the government expected next week and the wild card of unpredictable tariffs from the US also on the table. Well, Liz Martins is HSBC's senior UK economist. Liz, bank policymakers sounded very cautious this week. Do you think they are preparing markets to hold rates for a while longer?
Well, not quite. The Bank of England did say that interest rates in the UK are on a gradual declining trajectory, but they also said there is no preset path. They are judging things as we go, and who can blame them, right? This is a very uncertain backdrop. I think the reason they are as cautious as they are is that unfortunately inflation is back on its way up. And while we knew that was going to happen, we had hoped earlier in the year, I guess, that the hump would take us to the high twos. It now looks like it's going to take us to the high threes, almost double the bank's target. Now, that in itself is not a problem if it is temporary, but of course we need to be, or the Bank of England needs to be very vigilant against the possibility of second round effects, and that's why they are taking it very much one step at a time here.
As you say, inflation is very difficult to forecast at the moment. Among other things, we don't yet know if the UK will be hit by more tariffs from President Trump, but are policymakers right to move this slowly?
Well, I think it's difficult, isn't it, in real time? I think, the economy could certainly do with a little bit of assistance. If you look at the consumption picture, it's kind of stalling. Consumer confidence is relatively low. The savings rate is still high. If you look at businesses, a lot of people are sitting on their hands due to all the uncertainty. And then if you look at the government, maybe they'll have to rein back spending a little bit as well. So you put it all together, and it does feel like an economy that's not in recession, but is a little bit soggy and could do with some help from the Bank of England. But of course, at the same time, it won't help if inflation, starts to go higher and to sort of spiral. So, these are the considerations the bank has to take into account, and it is a hard one.
There were some concerns in their own data, especially in the jobs market, where a number of companies reported they're freezing hiring. How worried do you think policymakers should be about employment?
Well, I think quite worried, to be honest. If we look around the globe, we are seeing signs of labour markets slowing. So that's a kind of global phenomenon. And then for the UK, we've also got some policy, sort of government policy disincentives that are coming through, namely the national insurance rises, the national living wage, the employment bill of rights, all of these. These are policies that are in place for a reason, but they do make hiring more expensive and a bit harder. So you've got that. And then I think the tricky thing is that all of this is happening at a time when you've got AI and automation alternatives. So all those things together do make me worried about the jobs market. Having said that, the evidence of companies actually letting people go is very thin so far. So it may be that companies are waiting for April itself, or it may be that all these very ugly surveys that we've seen really reflect companies venting frustration, and maybe things aren't quite as bad as maybe they appear. I think, we have to wait until April really and a couple of months afterwards to know how serious these threats around job cuts and hiring freezes are.
This Friday morning, Liz, we discovered that UK government borrowing was sharply higher than expectations in February, and next week, as you've said, we've got Finance Minister Rachel Reeves' spring statement. Whatever happens, lower growth will already have dramatically reduced her so-called headroom, won't it?
That's right. So she only left a pretty narrow margin of headroom back in October. It looks like the Office of Budget Responsibility probably will revise down its forecast for growth. It was going for 2% in 2025, which now does look a bit over-optimistic. As well as that, bond yields are up, so the cost of borrowing is up as well. And that just means, there's less room left over for any nice things. So we are likely to see spending cuts in that review.
That was Liz Martins of HSBC. Don't forget, you can watch more videos on Reuters.com.